Good afternoon, and thanks for joining me today. My name is Staff Sgt. Martin Schiavetta of the Calgary Police Service Homicide Unit. I'll be giving a update in relation to the legacy homicide file. The three suspects who were quickly tracked and located by HAWCS after a daylight shooting in a public park in Legacy have now been formally charged. Around 3:50 p.m. on Tuesday, July 14th, we were called to a park near the intersection of Legacy Parade and Legacy Lane Southeast. Nearby residents reported that a person in a vehicle had been shot, and when our officers arrived, they found a man dead on the scene. HAWCS was already in the air at the time of the incident and was able to quickly locate the suspect vehicle fleeing the scene. They tracked it and relayed their movements to patrol officers so that an arrest could be made at the safest location possible. This ensured a quick arrest and prevented disposal of key evidence related to the homicide. Joseph Chlala, 19, of Calgary, Troy Lemke of Calgary, and a 15-year-old male from Ottawa, Ontario, have all been charged with first-degree murder. The youth cannot be named under the Youth Criminal Justice Act. All three accused will now appear at their next court date, which is scheduled on Monday, July 20th. Following an autopsy by the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner, the victim has been identified as Christian Navos, 32 years old, of Edmonton, Alberta. We believe this murder was targeted and connected to a drug-related dispute. I'll now take any questions.
Just given the timing of when this happened and where it happened in a residential community near a playground, how concerning is that?
Extremely concerning. Obviously, we know that stray rounds don't discriminate. Anyone could have been hurt seriously, if not fatally, in that community. There's houses, there's children. We're extremely concerned by the level of public violence, and this is something that our police service takes very seriously and is very concerned about.
Speaking of concerning, I'm assuming it's concerning just with how much gun violence there has seemingly been in Calgary over the last little bit. Can you just talk about why potentially we have seen a little bit of a rise in gun violence in the city?
Well, unfortunately, the rise in gun violence isn't simply in Calgary. It's throughout all major centers within our country. Obviously, there must be a high availability of firearms, and you couple that with ongoing drug disputes and organized crime, and the end result is that all of us should be very concerned in our city as these events are occurring on our streets, in our playgrounds, in our parkades, and it's going to take a community to solve this.
The accused, were they known to police? Do they have prior criminal history?
Yes, they are known to police.
So is that frustrating, as a police officer, having to re-arrest these people over and over and over again?
Well, obviously the magnitude of these charges speaks to pre-planning, organized crime. This was a targeted homicide. As far as the evidence that was collected, we're very happy with the quick response from HAWCS. We wouldn't have been able to lay charges as quickly as we did without that resource. Although the people are known to police, this is the first time that they have been charged with such a serious offense.
Also, a lot of the hometowns listed with the victim and also with the youth were outside of Calgary. Is this something that we're seeing more of this criminal activity, stray between city to city?
Well, one of the most challenging things within law enforcement are cross-jurisdictional files. They can be very challenging, both logistically and resource intensive. I can safely say if it wasn't for the quick response by our helicopter to locate the crime vehicle fleeing, the charges that you see before you today would likely not be laid so quickly.
What is the message to residents of Calgary who feel like they're living way out in the suburbs? They feel like they're untouched by these crimes until it arrives literally on their front doorstep. What is your message to those residents who maybe think they're immune to this type of violence?
Well, I think that's a good point. I don't think there's a community in Calgary that is immune from gun violence. This was a targeted, pre-planned event. The suspects do not have ties to the community of Legacy. So I certainly want to reassure the people who live in that community that these people do not have ties there. Obviously, in speaking to our law enforcement partners throughout the country, we are seeing criminals traveling nationally and internationally, and they're doing this and trying to defeat the police. And that's why it's so important that police share information and have the best intelligence available to them to hold people accountable for such serious offenses.
You said that the criminals don't have any ties to Legacy, that no one involved has ties to Legacy. Do you have an idea what they were doing in that community?
We believe this was a pre-planned meet between these individuals, the victim and the suspects, and obviously the result was extremely tragic and very dangerous to anyone who lived in that community.
The youth involved in this, obviously I understand that you can't identify the youth, but can you elaborate at all what that youth's relationship might be with this, the two other co-accused, and why he may have been with somebody who's 35 years old and 19 years old?
That's a very good question. I would define the relationship between the youth and the other suspects as a criminal relationship. Okay, and lastly, I think the final message I would like to get out is that obviously gun violence affects everyone who lives in our community, and we need people to come forward with information, and sometimes the smallest tip, the smallest piece of information can help us solve these crimes and help us hold offenders who are posing a danger in our community accountable. Thank you.
If I could ask, sorry, just one question on that final note. Talking about gun violence, there was a shooting over the weekend on July 12th on 16th Avenue, just outside of Fire and Ice. And we've been sent a video of that shooting. Are police aware of that video, and are there any charges that you are aware of off the top of your head?
Yeah, I can't speak to that event as I don't have knowledge about that particular one. I can tell you, though, that we are strongly looking at the homicide in Legacy being connected to another homicide that occurred in our city. So we are looking at that link, and I can't go into too much detail, as obviously this is just before the courts, but we are looking at that linkage, and we have a fantastic firearms lab right within our service that allows us to examine seized firearms, casings, other ballistic information, and make those comparisons and linkages, and that's helping us hold these people accountable. If you look at the 19 homicides that have occurred this year, we have laid charges in 16, which is I think at 84% clearance rate, which is extremely high for any metropolitan city in Canada, and we're very proud of that. But that speaks to the teamwork, and obviously HAWCS is a big part of that team for us.
I know you said you can't elaborate a whole lot, but you brought up there is a linkage potentially to another homicide. Can you give us any other information when that or where that other homicide might have occurred?
I can just say that homicide occurred within the city of Calgary this year, and because obviously charges have been laid in both events, I can't speak about any more details as it's before the courts. Thank you.